LOL. My attribute points are full, and the alliance has been shut down. Introduction. Reaction, APM, physical function, replenishment, wilderness speed, stress resistance, tower blade. All attributes related to the LOL game took Zhou Tong 10 years to complete. However, before leaving the level, he found out that the alliance was about to be shut down. Zhou Tong, who drowned his sorrows with alcohol, fell asleep and woke up, but was reborn in 2012. This book. Chapter 1. Rebirth 21012. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, in the dimly lit room, there is a game interface for LOL on the computer. Zhou Tong was typing on the keyboard with a crackling sound, spraying at a passerby. His virus killed the competition while smoothly typing out literary words in the typing bar, pointing directly at the opponent's genealogical and matrilineal elders. The barrage exclaimed one after another, I would like to call him the top scholar in both civil and martial arts. You can still carry while typing, big brother. 6666 Do you have the ability to not pursue a profession and instead become a small anchor here? As the settlement screen popped out, Zhou Tongchang breathed a sigh of relief and stopped his jumping fingers. After quickly returning to the lobby with Alt and F4, he comfortably leaned back on the esports chair, squinted his eyes, and lit a cigarette. He doesn't want to play professionally, it's just that he has two strict requirements for himself. Starting from 3 years ago, Zhou Tong realized that he was different from ordinary people. He could see his various indicators and attribute points for League of Legends. This attribute point is not the hero proficiency that comes with the game. But it's about game ability attributes such as responsiveness, APM, number of operations per minute, physical function, replenishment, jungle speed, stress resistance, and tower knife. With the deepening of self-training, Zhou Tong finally observed today that his various attributes have reached their peak, and some values are even on par with world records. For example, the world record for APM is 500 plus, and Zhou Tong has also reached this level. Although APM is not as important to League of Legends, pursuing perfection in everything is always right. To do it, be a flawless man. As for Hirimto's 577, there are clever ingredients that cannot be explained by conventional theory. At this moment, Zhou Tong, in his peak state, was full of ambition and couldn't wait to take out his phone to contact the domestic clubs he had previously contacted. Isn't it true that T1 in the LCK division this year defeated the LPL division in China with just 3 wins? The flying god in his 40s is still displaying his divine power. The situation is very good now, and there is a shortage of super players to salvage the situation. Zhou Tong is full of confidence. But as he opened his phone, a consultation on the homepage made him panic. Fist Company has decided to cease operations of League of Legends on March 16, 2041. Thank you very much for the company of global players. See you next game. I'll hold on to your one. Zhou Tongchi kicked out in anger, directly cutting off the power cord and instantly plunging the screen into darkness. At this moment, he couldn't even manage the power cord. Looking in the mirror at the various attributes that he had honed with every bonus point above his head, he was filled with despair. Esports is already in a slump in today's society, and only League of Legends can sustain it. If League of Legends also stops operating, then all the training that has been invested for so many years will be basically in vain. Feeling discouraged, Zhou Tong wandered on the overpass carrying beer until 3 o'clock in the morning. 10 years, a full 10 years. He is not a talented athlete. Since he was able to see the attribute points of various indicators, Zhou Tong has put in unimaginable efforts. Every day from morning till night, sometimes only 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and the rest of the time is spent playing games. The eyes of relatives in the family, the ridicule of peers, and the incomprehension of parents are all suppressed in the heart, and they rely on live streaming to earn a meager income every month to make a living. He devoted all his energy to attribute training points. Now all the attributes have finally reached their full value, and looking at the whole world, it is difficult to find a player who can defeat him in terms of skill. If LOL stops serving, all his previous efforts will be in vain. Gudong gulped down the beer, and Zhou Tong was already unaware of everything. His mind was dizzy and he crashed. With one hand, he barely grabbed the door of the roadside ATM, fell to the ground, and fell into a deep sleep. Brother Tong, wake up quickly. Look, next year the heavenly ladder system will be redesigned. I heard there will be some rank system coming out. The drowsy Zhou Tong felt his shoulder being vigorously shaken and impatiently knocked off with his hand, saying, "Don't bother me, let me sleep to death, let me sleep with the continent of Valoran." Don't make a fuss, you still want to sleep with the Valoran continent. Are you fooled by the game? Did you forget that you have an appointment for lunch today? Su Tingting goddess, Zhou Tong suddenly opened his eyes. Su Tingting. What a distant name. Is it the school flower that I licked when I first entered university? I vaguely remember giving her gifts every day at that time, using candles around the playground to confess, 90.9 roses, and all sorts of tricks. The bad woman didn't agree or refuse, and just hung him up like this. As soon as I graduated from college, I quickly married Gao Fushuai from the school's esports club. I'm the one who pushed you. Zhou Tong stood up and sat up drowsily. Immediately after, he looked at the young man beside him with a frightened expression and said, "Xiao Fang. When did you become so young? What is this?" Zhou Tong looked around and realized that he was sitting on the sofa of the internet cafe. Looking back, he saw a familiar poster filled with a sense of time pasted on the wall of the internet cafe. In addition to the familiar slogan of CF in ancient times. If you want to fight, I will fight. In addition to having millions of Crossfire brothers, there are also classic LOL promotional posters. Katarina is located at the very center, with her arms folded and holding a dagger. The scar in her eyes is sharp and sharp. Blue Lotus Internet Cafe. The young people around Zhou Tong looked inexplicable. You're feeling drowsy, bro. Last night, you called me to stay up all night, and then in the second half of the night, you muttered, "Benisi can't bear it anymore, so I'll go to bed on my own." E.C. Popular words from ancient times. Emperor Li Yi. Why? Looking at the familiar faces of young people, it is clear that this is Fang Yan, my roommate during college, and my brother who slept in my upper bunk. I haven't seen him for many years since graduation. Kafanjian's current face looks delicate and youthful, clearly reminiscent of his college years. Zhou Tong, who was unclear but very excited, tightly grasped Fang Yan's hand. Fang Yan was flattered and quickly stepped back, saying, "Don't worry, brother. I'm not good at that bite. Don't think you can do whatever you want by staying up all night. At least, we'll have to invite you for a week." Zhou Tong seemed to have never heard of it, wandering in a familiar yet unfamiliar internet cafe. Watching the fragments buried deep in old memories reappear before his eyes, if it were a dream, he hoped that he would never wake up in his lifetime. Take a deep breath. Zhou Tong sat in the same position as Fang Yan, with familiar websites, logos, and many game websites on the screen. I remember back then, the boxes released by this website were very popular among players. There was once a slogan of not opening a box. Click on the League of Legends client and find the ancient but nostalgic interface of Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. It is clean and tidy, and you can easily click on the leaderboard. The top 10 players in Ionia are familiar with their IDs, accounts. What kind of Blood King Strawberry, what kind of Uzi, what kind of Ruthless Beauty, and what kind of Hirano Aya are all familiar characters on the field. One of the IDs named Seabass caught Zhou Tong's attention and immediately made him feel respected. This player later claimed to be the most stable middle Dan in the world, and Fei Shen from South Korea once said, "Brother Stick. He is the most steady player I have ever seen, and his steadiness scares me. There is also a world-renowned online commentator who commented. When facing Brother Stick, I only dare to go out and slowly develop my armor, but I can't even try to kill him. Zhang Jiawen, a well-known passerby in the wilderness, gave a sharp review. I cannot be his dirty soldier, on the contrary, I am willing to share my F6 with him. At this moment, Zhou Tong had calmed down. He tapped his fingers on the table and asked slightly dullness, Xiao Fang, what year is this year? Fang Yan inexplicably touched Zhou Tong's head and said, have you had a fever? In 2012. Zhou Tong buried his head on the keyboard, panting heavily, his fingers trembling uncontrollably, and his mouth dry. Forcefully swallowing saliva, my Adam's apple twitched and I kept licking my dry lips with my tongue. Take a deep breath. Calm down. Be absolutely calm. I'll calm down your one. Zhou Tong suddenly stood up and hugged Fang Yan. That's not all. He rushed towards the back door fire escape, pushed open the side window, held his hands like horns, and shouted hysterically outside the window. 2012 I'm back. Chapter 2. I'm afraid the toilet may not have enough storage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, in the bathroom, Zhou Tong too was buried under the faucet and drenched in water. It was the 12th month of winter, but fortunately the internet cafe had heating. Otherwise, this shower would have been a cold that lasted for a week. With the help of cold water washing, Zhou Tong's mind cleared up a lot. I traveled back on my own, back to 2012, with a panel full of various attribute points. With the help of the mirror on the wash basin, Zhou Tong measured the attribute values on his head and all his abilities were at their full capacity. If you go to play a profession in this state, you can at least reach S34 and continue to have a lively head fight with the middle-aged flying god. Returning to his seat, he raised his chin towards Fang Yan beside him and skillfully lit a cigarette, but his excited emotions still lingered. Play a game. Brother, take you. Proficiently open the Duo box, click to start the game, and go directly to the login interface. For many years, Zhou Tong has been using this account, and the account password has never changed. His fingers are clattering on the keyboard, and as high as 500 plus APM, his fingers slide out of the shadows. If we were to hold a dance troupe like QQ Dance on site now, it would captivate a large number of young girls in internet cafes. Fang Yan looked at Zhou Tong with a slanted gaze and said, don't worry, brother. Your score is not as high as mine, I'm already over 1,600 points. You, a player who is still hovering in the initial stages, what do you want to touch me with? Let me take you on the road, choose a waist, and pass wherever I am after level 6. Zhou Tong just smiled and did not argue. Fang Yan is telling the truth, he is not a talented player. It took him a whole 10 years to fully develop his attributes. When he went to college before, he was the most unlucky one in his dormitory. Opening the rune configuration interface, Zhou Tong felt a wave of unfamiliarity. Over the years, the changes have been so significant that I have almost forgotten the initial rune combinations. He reluctantly matched all the big essence of the imprint and carved pattern seal with strong correlation, and he had already decided what to play. Just as Zhou Tong pulled Fang Yan to start qualifying, at the same time, the little sister at the Blue Lotus bar also started a game with melon seeds. With a prompt sound, the selection interface is officially entered. Zhou Tong's eyes were almost filled with tears. The familiar selection background music was too retro, evoking his old memories, even his hands trembling while drinking water. However, he only focused on memories and ignored the issues with this version. Just as I entered the game, all the positions were taken. Zhou Tong looked bewildered and realized that he was on the 5th floor, with only assistants left. The classic 5th floor was not assisted but always assisted. At this point, shouldn't we say? If you don't give it to the 5th floor, just give it away. It's okay, brother. You're still on the waist, don't worry about ADC. I can grab the field on the first floor, buddy. You'll be okay later. He said he was going to fight wild, but when it was Fang Yan's turn to choose a hero, he almost instantly locked the unmatched sword G. Zhou Tong spat out a mouthful of water, almost causing the computer screen to dry in smoke. However, Fang Yan didn't take it seriously and proudly raised his head, saying, just keep an eye on it. For experts, any character can be used to fight in the wilderness. I look forward to the 1-second 5 swords I learned from my master. Your master can't be Shiman, can he? Fang Yenda curled his legs and said, that's right, crooked 90010. In the West Gate boasting, Jian took in 200 disciples. This person is still in the stage of boasting at Shiman. At present, Simon Confucius has not evolved into a world full of disciples. Moreover, Jian is not unable to fight in the wild, and the old version of Jian with a red buff and double Q stickiness is also feasible. We are currently in the early stages of LOL, and many gameplay has not been developed yet. Everyone is not strong enough, but in fact, everything can be played. If I remember correctly, this year's championship comes from Baodao in China, but unfortunately it doesn't belong to the same division. In the era when LPL went from non-existent to established, without a championship in the finals. From now until the S8, the entire domestic division will be in fear of being dominated by the OGN/LCK League. But that's a story from the previous timeline. Zhou Tong is full of confidence, believing that everything on this timeline will be different. Our lineup is not bad. On the first floor, Sword Lady fights in the wilderness, on the second floor, ADC Caitlyn, and on the third floor, there are newly released characters. Spider Queen Iris. A spider with 2 skills at the first level, which many players cannot put down. Zhongdan cards are also very powerful in today's version. At next year's WCG competition, a player with an oversized nose will bring the famous appearance of landing golden bodies to the attention of all players. A character with Q skill who opens up 3 branches in a canyon, Bull. It's Zhou Tong's turn, he immediately locks Master E, the Sword Saint, and selects the pure magic strong rune that was just matched. He clicks on the talent page, and the standard 2-1.9.0 perfect combination is achieved. It is now winter and November of 2012. If I remember correctly, the Sword Saint will soon receive a facelift next year, and if I don't play it again, I won't be able to play it. At this moment, on the Blue Lotus bar, the Internet Administrator sprayed out a mouthful of salt soda directly. How could there be actors? How to play with auxiliary easy. The Internet Administrator is named Tang E, who works part-time in her spare time. As a heavy LOL fan and has enough time to play games, her career as an Internet Administrator is just right for her. At this point, Tang E no longer wanted to play with the supporting team. If there were any other positions, it would be better to say that I am an ADC, and I particularly rely on the assistance of an assistant. However, the assistant chose a Sword Saint who didn't seem to be useful in the early stages. Tang E was furious. She didn't type and instead chose Rebirth teleportation in her summoner skills to protest. Isn't it, Brother Tong? With the help of E, did you make a mistake? Fang Yan turned to look at Zhou Tong and said, ADC doesn't want to play anymore. Look at his skill, Rebirth teleportation. He wants to give it away. Zhou Tong raised his index finger and shook it proficiently. For experts, any character can adapt to any position. Unexpectedly, Fang Yan's boomerang from Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com stabbed him in just a few minutes. He looked speechless and had already made a final decision on the game. If I can win, I'll eat 3 tons of xiang. Fang Yan roared with grief and anger, emphasizing the importance of qualifying matches. He put in all his strength in almost every game and won't easily waste any points. Zhou Tong remained calm and composed, adjusting the mouse DPI. Enter the game. The enemy has 30 seconds left to reach the battlefield, crush them. With the passionate music playing, the 5 players smoothly entered. Zhou Tong noticed that the rebirth teleportation of ADC Caitlyn was brought into the game, and it was not replaced, but it was also not explicitly sent, indicating that Caitlyn still has the heart to win the game. At this time, the situation must be smooth. Once a downturn occurs, Caitlyn will be the first to break down her mentality and drive directly to the opposite side. Therefore, although it was only a qualifying race of over 1,000 points on the ladder, he still showed the corresponding focus. Calculate the time and Zhou Tong will directly invade the opposite wilderness area. The fog of war in the opponent's wilderness was incredibly clear in his mind. He has simulated the optimal position of the red and blue card vision in his brain countless times, and the attribute points related to memory have been filled with confidence. Around the possible eye positions above the red buff pit, Zhou Tong entered the grass below F4, for ghosts, with his field of sight stuck, and at the beginning, he made a small design for the enemy's field play. Joking, how could a terrifying existence with full attributes make good brothers unable to eat enough? I'm very worried. Zhou Tongyi said with some indication. Fang Yan paused for a moment and said, "What?" "I'm worried that there won't be as much storage in the internet cafe restroom later." Chapter 3. Give me 1 residual blood and give you 1 world back. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After finishing the blue buff, Fang Yan prepared to walk towards Sanlang, but later on, there were no wild monsters in the position of the toad, and it wasn't until S4 that the Great Ghost was added. The opposing team's lineup is very normal, with Syndra as the center single player, Sylvana as the wild dragon player, Walleibel as the top single player, and Titanautilus as the assistant. The AD location is the newly released ADC Virus in May. Due to the high operational requirements of the newly added Draven in June, many players found it too difficult to get started, so Virus had a slightly larger audience. When Fang Yan finished brushing the 3 wolves, the opposing player Zuwana finally arrived at the position of the 4 ghosts. Due to the addition of a set of twin stone statues, there will be some remaining health. In fact, Zhou Tong didn't originally want to hide here because he remembered that in S2, many of the jungle battles started with F4 and followed the red buff all the way to Shuangshi statue. By the time he returned, the 4 ghosts had already been refreshed. However, due to the weak recovery ability of Dragon Girl, she needs to start a red card with the help of her teammates. This enabled Zhou Tong's small design to succeed. The Dragon Girl finished playing the 4 ghosts and only realized something was wrong when she walked into the grass. Zhou Tong had been waiting for a long time. Seizing his field of vision, he slashed twice, accompanied by the flashing light of the Dragon Maiden. The Sword Saint's Q skill followed closely behind, taking the human head into his pocket. Is this okay too? Fang Yan was stunned. Usually, the assistant would stand on the grass side of the red buff. He had never noticed before how he managed to get around it, but Zhou Tong was able to do so in such detail. Bull, you actually achieved perfect visibility. Although he gave Zhou Tong a thumbs up, Fang Yan was still worried about the game in this game. Due to the ADC being reborn with teleportation, 1 health has already been taken by the opponent. And Caitlyn, who had been reborn, seemed to no longer want to play in crazily posted question marks in the chat box. Zhou Tong didn't speak. He knows that everything he says now is wrong, it's better to focus on the game. After returning to the city, Zhou Tong habitually searched for the murder ring in the mall. It was only after a moment that he realized that there were only murder books available now, and the ring had not yet been released. So I casually bought the loose parts of the Witch Plague. He is preparing to release all APs, French strength. As for auxiliary equipment, Zhou Tong has no plans. The current profit from auxiliary equipment is too low and there is no need to sell it, and he does not intend to compete with AD. After reaching the line, he manipulated the sword saint to hide at the edge of the grass behind him and apply pressure to the opponent. Katarin's original mentality was about to collapse, but seeing the sword saint obediently staying in the grass without any intention of eating soldiers, her frustration suddenly dissipated. It has to be said that most players in this era are still innocent. In the era when auxiliary equipment was not strong, players could only rely on auxiliary equipment and jump money to play a whole game. Many times, until the game ended, the auxiliary equipment only had a pitiful ice stone and scattered real and fake eyes in the column. It's like tears in my eyes. Tang Yi, who thought this swordsman didn't want to assist and deliberately had a mentality, suddenly stopped typing on the keyboard for a moment. He can't be a novice helper, can he? At the thought of this, Tang Yi felt a bit nervous. Brainstorming a pitiful assistant little brother named Wei Chu Baba, after accidentally getting the head of a wild man from the opposite side, he was also asked a question mark by his own ADC, which led to him staying in the grass and doing nothing after going online. In an instant, Tang Yi felt a burst of guilt. But soon this illusion was shattered. The coordination between the Titan and Virus on the opposite side is good. They are obviously teammates in the double row. They move up and down, and the distance control is very clever, which can ensure that when the Titan hooks, they can immediately receive the output. Caitlyn's first return to the city was snatched away by these two people for 2 seconds. But the same method cannot be applied the second time. Zhou Tong stood in the grass, and Titan actually wanted to come over and occupy the grass. There is no problem with basic consciousness. This is a competition with over 1,000 and nearly 2,000 points, so it's basically not a rookie. Zhou Tong just took advantage of the time traveler, leading in foresight and operation. LOL is a game that varies in every version and can almost be considered a new game. Zhou Tong has forgotten a lot and his impression of this season is very vague, so he played very cautiously. When the Titan approached, Zhou Tong also started with a level A, and after 2 consecutive cuts, he focused on the Titan and directly launched a Q with a hook. The rune of Chuanfa is strong, and the head of the person who fought in the wilderness was taken. The Q damage of the Sword Saint is not low. Directly cut off a quarter of the health of the adjacent ADC. It should be noted that the Q for close contact avoidance of Titans may seem simple, but it is actually not easy and requires a particularly high level of responsiveness. Some teenagers aged 15 or 16 can easily avoid it, but if they are a little older, it can be quite difficult. Thanks to the full value attribute point panel, Zhou Tong has a far ahead reaction ability compared to ordinary people. This operation is considered a basic operation. Repeating this operation, the Sword Saint remained hidden at the edge of the grass, continuously exerting pressure on the opposite side. After repeating it multiple times, Virus was already bleeding. At this point, Titans dare not make any more random moves. The 2-player group on the opposite side of the road thinks that this Sword Saint is very evil and seems to be unable to control it. Every time the Titan's hook is dodged by him using his Q skill, he wants to level A and output a set, but the Sword Saint's W is tightly controlled. Always block the following skills with W when Virus is passively full. There will be no mistakes at all. This also leads to the appearance of the combination of Virus and Titans being more powerful, but the exchange of blood always cannot replace the opposing Kataringa Sword Saint. Tang Yi widened her eyes, she had never experienced such a thing before. She also scored over 1,000 points and is considered a master among friends, but she has never played such an easy match before. All she needs to do is repair her sword, damage and control the Sword Saint. Due to Caitlyn's long attack range, she only needs to eat soldiers from a distance. I thought Master E was a beginner just now, but now I only have admiration left. If this Sword Saint is by his side, Tang Yi wants to catch him and ask how he did it. After catching the mistake on the other side and getting killed, Zhou Tong, who returned to the city, did not first synthesize the curse of the witch demon and directly revealed the murder book. In less than 20 minutes, the matchmaking period had ended, and the defense tower on the opposite side of the road had already been breached, so Zhou Tong directly began to wander. Fang Yan's game was very uncomfortable, and the spiders on the road seemed to be practicing heroes. Every time he catches someone, the spider's thread presses against the opposite tower, while the bear's flashing Q can accurately carry his spider back into the tower and kill it. Di Jianji was suppressed to death by the bear, and the opportunity he finally found was resolved with just one E skill. The old version of the bear's E comes with deceleration, and it is not afraid of Jianji's 2- advance. On the contrary, it was killed by the bear once in the wild. In less than 25 minutes of the game, the opponent gathered on the road and pushed their troops directly to the high ground. At this point, Zhou Tong's Sword Saint had silently developed and formed, with 20 layers of murder books combined with hat and shoe techniques. The strength of the technique had reached an extremely terrifying level. Done. As the sound effects of the 4 kills sounded, Fang Yan let go of his hands in a decadent manner, leaving only one auxiliary swordsman. What can he do? However, what Zhou Tong saw was different. 5 people on the opposite side huddled together in a concentrated formation, and the health of the female player was depleted. Do you still remember that sentence? At some moment, in the darkness, the future Zhou Tong and the present Zhou Tong completed a dialogue that transcended time and space in their minds. An ancient yet excited murmur echoed in my heart. Give me residual blood, give you a world. Activate the ultimate move, and the Sword Saint rushes to the battlefield with a stream of light behind him. His goal is to face Cinderella on the opposite side. Cinderella played very well, and even destroyed her own card master online. She hardly ever used her card tricks and never provided any support. Faced with the Sword Saint who came with a big move, Cinderella had no fear and was surrounded by Titan bears. Her E skill had been fully upgraded, and her distance was similar to the Sword Saint's Q range. AP Sword Saint wants to save the world. I'm afraid it's just a dream. The Syndra player sneered at the corners of his mouth, then pressed his finger on the E skill. When the Sword Saint approached, he had a way to put an end to this delusional guy. Zhaoshuyuan.com. It's getting close. Get closer. As Syndra and Titan's hooks were simultaneously released, the Sword Saint who entered the range did not choose to use Q to evade. Cinderella's plan, as Zhou Tong had anticipated, was to control the distance of casting spells. So let's just not submit Q. With a bang. The 5 enemies saw a golden light flash by. It's a flash. Zhou Tong directly used the flash to dodge the Titan hook, and at the same time, he dodged Syndra E's repulsion from above. At this point, Q landed on Syndra's head. With Syndra's death, the enemy's concentrated position allowed the Sword Saint's Q to hit 4 targets simultaneously, and 3 remaining health appeared. The passionate broadcast sounded from the canyon. Double kill. Triple kill. Quadra kill. Penta kill. Ace. Winning. Fang Yan jumped up directly from the sofa, and the ups and downs of the plot made him unable to conceal his excitement. He held Fang Yan in an extremely worshipful embrace and said, "Tong Gu, you are my god." Zhou Tong casually put down his hands, but his violently beating heart showed his restless heart. Time, you can start over. Everything can start again, just like the Master E on the screen who is equipped with the Magia soul-stealing scroll. At the bar, facing the customers who came to open their cards early in the morning, Tang Yi's expression was stunned and he didn't hear them. The lollipop in my mouth has melted, and the handle is still on my lips. She stared blankly at the interface of the victory settlement in front of the screen. Can assistant still play like this? Chapter 4. Sorry. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. After seeing off the guest who opened the card, Tang Yi casually opened a lollipop and stuffed it into his mouth. Victory settlement had not yet been closed, so he hesitated for a moment and sent a friend invitation to the Sword Saint. She loves playing this game very much, and only in this game can it not be so unfair. All the resources and snowballs can be rolled up by herself. Unlike that repressed Home Tang Yi's eyes drooped, his fingers slid back and forth on the mouse, and his mood was not very calm. She is full of interest in the imaginative assistant swordsman, and in this era, there is a trend of apprenticeship in games. She thinks she can discuss it with the other party. It's just that Zhou Tong has already turned off the computer here. Are there any classes in the afternoon? The two roommates in the dormitory were intertwined, and after too long, Zhou Tong had forgotten what he was doing at this time. Fang Yan nudged him with his elbow and said, "Do you have an appointment later?" "Did you really forget?" Su Tingting. Zhou Tong remembered the name, and at the same time, a figure dressed in a floral dress appeared in his mind, always refusing to smile from thousands of miles away, keeping a distance in his speech, but often giving him hints as if there were none. "I prefer boys who are ambitious and hard-working." So Zhou Tong worked hard to study, doing odd jobs when there were no classes, and all the money he earned was bought as gifts for Su Tingting. "I prefer agave." So Zhou Tong stuffed all the roses in his hand into the trash can and used the remaining meal money to order a handful of tequila and deliver it to Su Tingting. That night, he went to check the words of tequila. "Give everything for love." This further strengthened Zhou Tong's desire to lick the dog, believing that Su Tingting was implying to him that as long as he was firm, as long as he paid enough sincerity, his wishes could be achieved. "I'm so tired, I feel like I don't have any support, I always feel lonely." In the middle of the night, Su Tingting's QQ avatar flickered, and Zhou Tong, who had received the news, smeared it and got up. He braved the heavy snow and sat on the bench downstairs of the girls' dormitory, listening to her confide. The bad woman played around with Zhou Tong, but he was always determined and full of confidence. When he was about to give up, he always received various hints to cheer him up. She was like a mother cat, playing with Zhou Tong, this poor little Tom, in her hands. When she graduated, Su Tingting quickly married the wealthy second generation of the esports club. Zhou Tong didn't even receive the invitation. Perhaps, after licking for so long, he doesn't even have the qualification to be a friend. Thinking of the past, Zhou Tong smiled and shook his head, feeling too distant. It has been too long, and in his heart, there are no negative emotions towards Su Tingting, not even touching. The only thing left is the faint sour taste of love in his youth. But that's just a nostalgia for the past youth. Forget it. Zhou Tong smiled and shook his head. Eating is more important. Whatever you want to eat later, it's my treat. Fang Yan widened his eyes and said, "You saved all your money to buy gifts for Su Tingting. How could you be so generous today? It took you a long time to agree to stay up all night last night. There is a saying that goes, if you spend a few hundred yuan to buy a bunch of flowers for a girl, she may not react at all. But if you spend tens of yuan feeding your roommate's lunch, there is a 10% chance you will be called the adoptive father for a day." In his previous life, Zhou Tong's life was extremely difficult. After obtaining the superpower to check his own attributes, he became determined to develop in the field of esports. Parents don't understand, relatives treat each other coldly, younger siblings don't approve, and they don't even want to go back home during the Chinese New Year. Otherwise, they will face endless accusations. In order to force Zhou Tong to go home and work, the family directly suspended Zhou Tong's pocket money. In the first few months of broadcasting, it was thanks to the support of old friends like roommates that we managed to get through the most difficult period. Sigh. For the past, Zhou Tong could only sigh lightly. Taking Fang Yan to the Fly restaurant for a meal, Zhou Tong finally felt the changes of the times when he took out his phone to make the payment. At this time, mobile payments had not yet become popular, and it was only then that he remembered taking out the wallet he had not used in over a decade from his pocket. I forgot about Su Tingting directly, and the two brothers finished their meal and sweated profusely on the court until evening before returning to the dormitory. Arriving at the bottom of the dormitory building, Fang Yan held a basketball, lifted his coat to wipe sweat, but hurriedly put it down. He patted Zhou Tong's shoulder with some restraint and went upstairs alone. Cheer up. Before leaving, Fang Yan clenched his fists and encouraged him, showing great concern for his brother's affairs. Originally, there were two familiar figures standing downstairs in the boys' dormitory. Although many years had passed, Zhou Tong recognized them at a glance. Su Tingting. And his roommate Fang Na. As Su Tingting's famous licking dog back then, Zhou Tong, a member of her dormitory, was very familiar with her and often asked them about Su Tingting's hobbies, seeking their help in handing over her gifts. Su Tingting kicked her hand in her pocket, her face turning red from the cold. Fang Na was playing games with her phone, seemingly unaware that the person waiting had already arrived. In fact, there isn't much fun in mobile games at this time, it's just Fruit Ninjas, Angry Birds, Temple Escapes. Remember that Tian Tian Capeo has also been launched. In some backward counties and cities, it seems that even smartphones have not been popularized. Passing by Su Tingting's side, Zhou Tong greeted him with a friendly wave and politely smiled before heading upstairs. It's too cold, especially after just playing basketball and sweating, the sweaty underwear clings to the skin, cold and cold. At this time, finding redemption for the dormitory radiator is the top priority. Just as Su Tingting was about to speak, she noticed Zhou Tong walking upstairs without looking back. Her pretty face turned red with cold, and her eyes seemed resentful. She anxiously tugged at her best friend's sleeve. Fang Na only then noticed Zhou Tong. What's wrong with you, kid? Even though you invited our Tingting to dinner today, why did you bring pigeons to Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com? Zhou Tong, you're going too far. Apologize to my Tingting quickly. If you get angry this time, I won't care. Fang Na stared at her phone screen, somewhat absent-minded, clearly forced to open her mouth and recite the words as if she had memorized them. As a roommate, she knew that Su Tingting had countless suitors, among whom she was closer to Zhou Tong and a wealthy second generation overseas, both of whom were her high school friends. On weekdays, Su Tingting maintains close contact with two people at the same time. During the day, she goes to eat with Zhou Tong and crushes the road, and at night, she has video calls with the wealthy second generation. In her words, they are all buddies who have been playing since childhood. To be honest, it's not a big deal, but what Fang Na thinks is inappropriate is that Su Tingting almost maintains a somewhat ambiguous relationship with these two people, hanging steady and not pushing forward, and cannot go too far. In Fang Na's eyes, Zhou Tong had little hope, but Su Tingting was almost covered by him for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was simply too good to be true. Holding it in her hand, she was afraid of falling, and holding it in her mouth, she was afraid of melting. She couldn't bear to refuse Fang Na directly, as she knew who would score so clearly with free meal tickets. After all, he is a roommate. Fang Na won't say it too openly. He has a close relationship with Zhou Tong, so why offend his roommates who spend time together? At most, it's just a perfunctory sentence. Did I take the initiative to make an appointment? Zhou Tong scratched his head, he had forgotten many things and couldn't remember them clearly long ago. But in this way, the problem really lies with himself. It's not good to stand up to others. He politely smiled. I'll treat you to dinner another day to apologize. I forgot too many things today, I'm really sorry. Although she spoke politely, Su Tingting inexplicably felt that Zhou Tong today had an indescribable sense of distance, polite with a hint of distance, as if she was no longer the person she had known before. Chapter 5. Ideas. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, be polite, but also with alienation. Just a day without seeing each other, Su Tingting felt as if she was several decades away from the boy in front of her, feeling a sense of unfamiliarity interfered by time. Su Tingting took a step forward to stop Zhou Tong and said, "Please don't rush to have a meal. Actually, I have something to do today and only found out when I came back that you didn't come either. I just wanted to ask you, will we go back together for vacation this year?" The two families were very close, and they both attended high school together. However, after Su Tingting got married, she rarely went home. The Zhou Tong family also moved out once, and there was little contact in the following decades. If I were young, it wouldn't be considered that they met in high school. Before, there were actually 3 people: Zhou Tong, Su Tingting, and Chu Yuan. Zhou Tong and Chu Yuan both really like Su Tingting. From their first year of high school, the two of them regarded each other as competitors, but in the end, neither of them caught up and inexplicably played together. Later, Chu Yuan went abroad, and Zhou Tong and Su Tingting were admitted to the same university, which made Zhou Tong feel stable for a while. The memories of the past are faint, with a delicate floral fragrance. This is a gift from memory, and it feels very beautiful. However, Zhou Tong now no longer has that kind of interest in Su Tingting, but due to past relationships, he cannot be too indifferent. He casually said, "Let's see, if it happens to be tickets for the same day." Su Tingting was stunned for a moment, which was different from what she had imagined. If it were normal, Zhou Tong would be persistent and never give up until she asked which day the tickets she had bought, and sometimes even thoughtfully book a double seat in advance. Anyway, it's impossible to be so perfunctory. This made her heart ache, as if some of the things she originally had were inadvertently lost, and it felt very bad. So Su Tingting pretended to be angry and turned around, pulling Fong Na away. "Call me. Hurry up and call me. He will definitely call me." Su Tingting's heart kept repeating. Every time she showed half a sense of disappointment, Zhou Tong would revolve around her like a dog's skin ointment, unable to shake it off. This time is no exception. She has great confidence in herself. However, Zhou Tong only waved his hand politely, and while Su Tingting was still waiting, he had already turned around and gone upstairs. 2 girls in the wind and snow, empty behind them. As the saying goes, everyone has a pursuit. In this deep winter night, what should be pursued should not be a girl with long legs who will say you are a good person, but a great radiator. Of course, if it could be heated up a bit, it would be even greater. The castle keeps secrets for love. And I'll keep memories for you. Clearly. Standing in the hallway, one can hear the ghost crying and wolf howling of dormitory 702. Zhou Tong is tolerant of these roommates, after all, which father wouldn't tolerate his own son? But as he approached, facing the door of the dormitory, he hesitated a bit, his nose slightly sore, and he was not prepared for his old friend who had spanned decades. The dormitory door was pulled open directly from inside. "Adong. Why are your eyes red? It's not like being rejected by a bad woman. Ha ha ha. I've tried to persuade you before, but you still lick it without any results. Wrong, wrong, stop laughing. Don't drop the golden beans, I can't see men and women chirping." Zhou Tong rubbed his eyes and cursed with a smile, "I'm so special." Who cried? "It's cold outside and hot inside, I'm not quite used to it." Pretending to be calm, Zhou Tong took off his down jacket and walked towards his bed. The smallest and most noisy square rock in the dormitory. Li Dong, a gloomy and coquettish male majoring in science. Wang Hao, a procrastinator who says he needs to go to bed early every day but plays games until midnight every day. Lin Haiyao, who likes to wash his stinky socks together and has been repeatedly criticized by his roommates. The dormitory is the most prestigious, but the dormitory director Su Jingyang is so nervous when he sees girls that he can't walk. All of the 6 people who slept together were also the few friends of Zhou Tong, who was not good at socializing. Perhaps another Chu Yuan had to be added. Lin Haiyao held a basin of water, draped a towel over his shoulder, and looked at Zhou Tong with a surprised expression on his face. It's strange, the bad woman has hit you so hard today. This is not like the usual confident expression. After all, the little white cat has tightly grasped Tom's psychology and will not make him despair until the end. Woman, poison. Su Jingyang shook his head and shook his head. Tonight, old Lu Yu from the neighboring dormitory is going black. Can we gather 5 people? Hai Yao can't play, Li Dong needs to review. Su Jingyang ordered troops and generals, and his finger moved on Fang Yan, Zhou Tong, and Wang Hao. Including Lao Lu, there are exactly 5 people, he said. Who do you look down on? I don't know how to play. Lin Haiyao put his legs and feet into the steaming bucket, took a comfortable deep breath, and kicked 2 splashes of water towards Su Jingyang's side. I believe that I am invincible, okay. Invincible dies twice a minute. This has all caught up with the rebirth teleportation. Su Jingyang expressed doubts. After all, he had never seen a first-level runner from Renquan go to demolish the base. Why don't you demolish the Renquan water tower together? Hey buddy, first find a tutorial to see how to play this game, at least you can get online. Lin Haiyao sneered repeatedly. I've played 4,399 before. Oh, don't bring me, just forget about it. Actually, I don't really want to play. Laugh to death, you're quite stingy huh, funny to death, you're really pretending. Wang Hao lit a cigarette and tapped his fingers on the keyboard, his mouth full of sarcasm as he said, you're so angry. 2012 is actually a crucial time point for League of Legends. Zhou Tong lay in bed, looking out at the gradually darkening window. 2 years ahead, League of Legends was just one of many niche games at the DreamHack exhibition in Sweden. But after S2 was successfully held, LOL was thriving and received a lot of attention from the public. In March of 2012, in a true sense, the City Championship competition for players nationwide was launched, which was the foundation of later LPL. 8 teams, including IG, OMG, WE, PE, and the Royal Family, will stand out in the urban competition, which can be considered as the first year of the global esports circle in a sense. Zhaohuiyuan.com. Starting from 2013, LOL has completely embarked on its journey to dominate the esports industry. This is the best era, and also the era where one can truly showcase their skills. Going forward, the league is irregular and the teams are all on the wild side, with very few opportunities for development. Going forward, the league capitalizes, making it difficult to make a name for itself. Zhou Tong has set his sights on the LPL League to be held in January next year. This is the beginning of the first LPL League, and if you show your head on it temporarily, it will be remembered by the history of LPL. By the end of S3, the domestic league system will rapidly expand around LPL, and LSPL will also emerge. If we could form a team, maybe we could stand out as soon as possible and be noticed by the league clubs. Zhou Tong sat up and confidently lobbied his roommates, hoping to recruit someone to join the group. No problem, the team name is 702 Squadron, challenge the men's dormitory and don't accept everything. Wang Hao shouted wildly, and controlled Li Xing to fly out of the grass, chasing an AP sword saint and inflicting damage. As a result, the other person left with full blood and a carefree demeanor. Lin Haiyao's face was full of enjoyment, his legs stretched out in the hot water bucket and he couldn't bear to leave. I will be the captain, and the name also needs to be changed. Just call it Haiyao Team. I think it's very unique, how about you? Drink Tui. Su Jingyang passed by, but only by. He didn't express his opinion, but was disgusted by Lin Haiyao. Zhou Tong collapsed in despair, rubbing his hair helplessly. These guys don't have this kind of mindset, but it's true. Everyone has their own pursuits, and even if their hearts are not here, they can't force themselves. However, he must seize the opportunity next year firmly. There are too many factors to consider when forming a team. Where should he start? Chapter 6. Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, at 8 o'clock, it's exactly 8 o'clock. Su Jingyang raised his arm, waved his hand, and signaled to Zhou Tong and the others to be ready. Tonight is a matter of gratitude and resentment. The Bureau of Gratitude and Resentment. Old Lu started arguing with someone in a row and made an appointment with them for 5v5. Our dormitory has an average score of over 1500, so we came here to seek help. Su Jingyang directly revealed the inside information, and he was very confident. Wang Hao scored 1800, the person with the highest score in the dormitory. He mainly played single player and was skilled in handling monsters. Next is Fang Yan, with a score of 1635. He mainly plays in the wilderness and his gameplay is exceptionally fierce, much like himself. The youngest and most lively person in the dormitory is Fang Yan, who is restless all day. However, Zhou Tong just ordered some and is still hovering around the initial score. Today is 1200, tomorrow is 1100, the main focus is on not getting up or down. I'm thinking about Lao Lu's beat score, can you still argue with people? Disabled people fighting, over 800 points are almost falling to Grandma's house. Wang Hao's mouth has been smelly for quite some time now. He speaks directly to the core and doesn't like to save face, but aside from being a gamer, he's pretty good. The only downside is being scumbag. He is handsome, has money at home, and has good grades. He sounds like either a standard male god or a scumbag reserve. People with this configuration are easily at two extremes. I love playing with fried fish the most. Fang Yanyu roared and jumped out of bed, directly opening the computer, not forgetting to pull Zhou Tong. Brother Tong, come here quickly, it's a great evening. I love this configuration the most. What are they betting on? The one who will lose will call everyone Dad. Fang Yan's mouth is broken and chattering, and he loves this kind of occasion the most. Zhou Tong shrugged his shoulders, it didn't matter whether he played or not, but everyone's interest was so high that they could only set aside the matter of forming a team for now. On the other side, Su Jingyang has already connected wheat with the neighboring Old Lu. What, did you shout for a middleman? Only 3 people are missing. What's going on? There are 4 people here who just made it up for you. Lao Lu's voice faintly came from across from the earphones. Didn't I hear that the other side has found a master? The kid we're talking to is from the neighboring school. We're betting on running naked on the playground, we really can't lose. Lao Lu's voice was aggrieved and said, is it Ah Tong on your side who won the singles? I heard they hired a contestant from the city championship, and they also won the singles. If Ah Tong breaks the line, it will be difficult for me to handle it. Su Jingyang cut off his cigarette butt and stomped hard on his feet. Turtle, the middleman in the city championship, where did he get such a big face? Is the person you hired reliable? I don't know either. I heard it's over 2,000 points, which can be seen on the Ionian leaderboard. Zhou Tong didn't interrupt from behind, with both hands in his pockets, watching Su Jingyang join the custom room. Ionia rankings. He saw it in the internet cafe this morning, and most of the IDs on it are familiar. It should be said that this game still relies on talent. No matter which version, those who can reach the top few are not mediocre. Among those on the leaderboard, some are still playing S13, relying entirely on their talents to support them. They start as new players and are now familiar with names on the leaderboard. It is highly likely that they will also be among these people in a few years. Zhou Tong knows himself well. He can only be said to have a bit of talent for the alliance, but not too much. Whether it's the ladder score or the rank system, he will always be unbeatable. It wasn't until I saw my own attribute panel and added targeted training that I achieved a flawless level of operation. This panel is very magical. What you have learned may be forgotten, but what is added to the panel is always there. A perfect 100% reaction power can ensure that Zhou Tong's reaction is always online when playing games. The same applies to other attributes. I'm sorry, Zhou Tong. It's not that I dislike you. I'm a contestant from the opposite city competition. Su Jingyang cursed and pointed his thumb at the screen. Zhou Tong remained indifferent and stood behind Su Jingyang's chair with both hands in his pockets, saying, I'll just take a look. Yes, Su Jingyang strongly agrees with this viewpoint. Learning and learning, if you can learn something from the city championship players, break through your 1200, and we will be invincible in the future. The opposite side is tough enough. Staring at Su Jingyang's screen, Zhou Tong's eyes suddenly lit up. Surprisingly, I got the competition uniform directly. It should be the account obtained by the player from the City Heroes Championship. The advantage is that the mechanism is similar to the competition, with all heroes and skins, and the opening is similar to qualifying, with a ban process. However, at that time, the BP, character disable selection, was quite retro, and only characters could be disabled on the first floor, and each side could only disable 3 characters. After the number of people from both sides is gathered, the game will start directly. The ban process went smoothly, and neither side stayed here for too long. After all, the core players on both sides are hundreds of points, so the BP process is not too formal. Entering the hero selection interface, YY was already in a frenzy. Seize Virus, first floor, first floor. Lao Lu wished he could shout out his throat. Even Zhou Tong, standing behind Su Jingyang, could hear him howling. The commentators have already said that the first ADC is now unbeatable. Pop. Su Jingyang from the ADC position chose the male gun Grafus as his backhand, and the 702 dormitory's main hit was a backbone. Are you special? Su Jingyang took off the earphones directly, holding them far away, and only put them back on when old Lu finished howling. He was full of confidence, his voice calm, and even a bit bubbly. Don't worry, don't be afraid, I'm a pure man thief. Yes, pure men. Currently, Graves is not a good brother and has not yet appeared as a second character for a certain anchor. If it is to say that the revised version of the regular attack flat cut with blossoming male gun is played with the gun head facing the face, then the male gun in the end of S2 belongs to the burning red barrel stuffed into the opposite mouth. I can't play any games without being aggressive. This is very in line with Su Jingyang's preferences. After the male gun was locked, the opposite side was not in a hurry. Anyway, the AD position had been determined, and they were not in a hurry to grab Virus. They directly took the lead in capturing the goddess of the moon, Diana. A typical AP assassin. At this time, Diana's ER skills have not yet been exchanged, and group control is not the main role. High DPS assassins are the true face under the veil of the moon goddess. Next, Shadow Fist Akali. Crouching slot, what's the situation with Akali? Is there a bright moon in the upper or middle order? Come on. The lighter has a lively flame, and the cigarette but turns red. Wang Hao was very arrogant and directly locked the exiled Blade Ruewen, saying, it's the same for anyone who places an order. It's pure abuse, it's boring. A reckless life runs through all the time, and this is Wang Hao. The subsequent choice went smoothly, with only Fang Yen hesitating for some time between the Wushuang's sword lady and the blind monk Li Qing. In order to seek stability, he still chose to fight against the traditional wild Li Qing. The lineup was quickly determined. Ruewen, the top single of our team, Wang Hao. Zhongdan is an expert invited by Lao Lu, playing with the furious heart of Canaan. Defeat the position of Fang Yen, blind monk Li Qing. ADC position Su Jingyang, a pure man who is a lawless maniac. As for the auxiliary position, it is held by Sana, the Chinsa fairy of Lao Lu. The other party is Akali, Jiaoyue, Zhao Xian, Virus, and Brits. Lao Lu was very manic and shouted along with the background sound in the game, let's launch an attack and crush them. I'm going to the neighboring school to see that hanging hair running naked. After the game started, Su Jingyang controlled the male gun and rushed non-stop to the grass on the way down. The classic level 1 card's field of view hits the opposite barrel with a shot. Fortunately, blind monks can open their own wilderness, following the 4 ghosts, red buffs, and double stone statues along the way, and then returning from the middle path to the 4 ghosts. This was a classic wilderness route at that time. People like Zhao Xian, the blind monk, who has a fast jungle clearing speed and strong recovery ability, can play like this. During the waiting process, Su Jingyang did not hesitate and directly clicked on Q. If all 3 bullets of Q are hit and the damage is decent, it is considered a core output skill of the male gun, while the resistance given by the E skill perfectly matches the title of pure male. Although the male guns at this time were not as flesh and violence as they were later modified, each had its own advantages. The current ones have faster damage, classic assassin type AD, and also possess the tankiness that other ADs do not possess. But until a round of soldiers passed, they didn't wait for the 2-person group on the opposite side to go online. What's going on? Old Lu was puzzled, but to his surprise, his words had just finished. In the game, First Blood, a blood prompt sound will sound directly. 5 people on the opposite side directly wrapped up and gave Jiao Yu 1 health. It's so disgusting. Play like this, right? Lao Lu was shouting and screaming, very nervous. He was the one who valued the outcome the most in this game. At this moment, a tender voice came from YY Mai. There's no way, it's wrapped up, you can't blame me. Everyone fell into a short period of stagnation. This is the first time this mid-career singles expert has spoken. Su Jingyang turned around and spread his hand, giving Zhou Tong a bewildered expression. According to rumors, Ionia is a master with a score of over 2,000, comparable to a professional brother, and sounds like a primary school student. That, Lao Lu, where did you find this expert? My cousin QQ sent me the contact information, I don't know. She said it's very impressive, it's a master, and Ionia's score is over 2,000. Old Lu wants to cry without tears. Brother, how old are you? Have you graduated from elementary school? The sound in the earphones is muffled, but it is difficult to conceal the childishness. I am not a primary school student. I am in my 3rd year of junior high school and my voice change period is late. But his voice lacked any persuasiveness, and Su Jingyang even felt that he was only in 5th grade of elementary school. Is it still possible to have a Tong go online? Although it's a dish, it shouldn't die too many times. This sentence is clearly a joke. What else can we do? Keep playing. The account of the competition suit has to push people and children out to log into this game, which is too ugly. Just one bet, Lao Lu has a strange personality and is not even targeting other children. Except for Wang Hao, the voice in YY has become much lower, showing a suspected elementary school student how to play. As for Wang Hao, he looked at everyone day by day and thought about playing 4, 6, 1, and 9. He could say whether he could fight or not, and his momentum was safe and sound. Fang Yen brushes the wilderness with a muffled sound. This does not conform to his restless personality. Zhou Tong could see that the pressure from the opponent's wild fighting was quite high, and Zhao Xian was not theoretically a match for the blind monk in the early stage. But the opposite side of the field is very good. Q, who is hiding wildly from Fang Yen against the model, puts a lot of pressure on him. After dying once, the upper half of the area is crazily invaded, and he always brings a collie with him to the book garden www.zhaosuiyuan.com. Wang Hao, can you do it? Watch it. Fang Yen wanted to drop the keyboard and once again died in a collie's agony. The single-player line has reached level 6, and Zhao Xian has an additional teammate with a big move to support him. He dare not even look at the upper half of Fang Yen. This is Wang Hao's playing style, very unique and distinctive. Pursuing only one operation throughout the process, never considering anything beyond the operation. The road presented a strange situation. Wang Hao's Ruiwen is already 3.0, but both sides have maintained a level of 6. With the teleportation, Akali's development is very stable, and she has always been leading in patching. Encountering battles in the field is not an empty battle for the opponent. It's a master. Zhou Tong rubbed her chin to watch the game, and from a conscious perspective, Ruiwen had already been exhausted. Wang Hao is actually very good at handling things, but his consciousness has always been poor. He is usually good at heroes like Jianji and Daomei. And his actions cannot be reflected in the current Ruiwen. The main W gameplay allows Ruiwen to follow a simple and rough route, and the Q skill is only used for displacement and driving. Some of Ruiwen's tips were mostly developed gradually in S3. For example, the speed of light QA has to mention one person. North American genius Bestravena. After he used the perfect combination of speed of light QA and passive coordination, card Q and various combo techniques were gradually studied and entered the vision of most players. Due to Wang Hao's overly unique playing style, Fang Yan had to abandon the upper half and instead attack the lower lane. Wait a minute. Su Jingyang was pointed into the spring water and was on his way. However, Zhou Tong noticed that there was something wrong with the two people on the map of the middle road. Quick, bring your perspective to the middle. Chapter 7, Get out of the way, I'm going to install X. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, the avatars on both sides of the middle road have been deadlocked for a while, and our senior brother Keenan's health is very weak, but he has not died yet. Instead, the avatars on both sides have interacted. Quickly, pull over and take a look. It was still a while before Su Jingyang reached the line, and he had just come out of the spring. As soon as the perspective shifted, I saw Keenan with a torch hanging on his head, while the skilled player in the opposite city competition, Dan Jiaoyue, was relentlessly pursuing him. Perhaps the ultimate move fell into a CD, and Jiaoyue was unable to use the minions for displacement, with a distance of 4 positions between the two. But Jiaoyue held the passive in her hand, and Keenan's health was very unhealthy, looking like only a dozen drops of blood. Half of the burning has passed, and at the end, the health is locked in single digits, looking like there is only skin left, while Jiaoyue still has 1/5 of her health. Do you want any children? Not necessarily. Zhou Tong doesn't think so. Before the perspective was pulled over, their avatars had already interacted many times, indicating that they had engaged in more than one battle. Now they should have handed in almost all their double moves and skills. Jiaoyue did not flash, and the distance between these 4 positions does not seem long. If the ultimate move falls into CD, cooldown time, there is nothing she can do with her attack distance, and she can only wait for Q to refresh. But the Q skill is very fast and should be able to improve immediately. On the other hand, Keenan is still far from the tower, and Jiaoyue's health is guaranteed to withstand tower damage once. So the outcome depends on whether Kenan can avoid this Q. If the thinking is clear enough, throwing QW to repair damage at the time when Jiaoyue resists the tower is not a problem, and it can be replaced directly. 3, 2, 1, almost done. Zhou Tong didn't pay attention to the time of Jiaoyue's last Q, but roughly estimated that he should have already improved. Jiaoyue did not rush to release Q, but paused for a moment to observe Keenan's movements. She used the curved Q to trap him in a dead corner, making it difficult to dodge. This location is very good, you don't even need to carry a tower. At the pause of Jiaoyue, Keenan suddenly turned around and attacked Jiaoyue Pu, then turned towards the upper right direction of the 4 ghosts at the moment when Q made a move on the opposite side. I brushed past this Q. There are no flashy and earth-shattering operations, pure reaction power. When I was young, I watched everything very slowly, especially for those who had an incredible reaction time. In their eyes, the Stone Man Moffat's ultimate move was like a turtle moving at high speed, with even more room to think about whether to use flash or displacement to avoid. However, as time goes on and age increases, sometimes, flashes cannot be avoided even when pressed under the fingers. This is the advantage of age. Children, relying solely on sharp observation and exaggerated reactions, find themselves stuck in a precarious situation full of dead ends. Adversarial luck and reaction. However, his flash hasn't been paid yet. Zhou Tong was stunned for a moment. Originally in a desperate situation, he judged that both sides had completed their skills. With a flash of golden light passing by. The moment I turned around a Jiaoyue just now caused Kenan's passivity to stack up perfectly, and after evading the opponent's skills Kenan's general attack, on the way to the general attack, launches a Q, and during the Q flight, he directly flashes E to connect with W. A combo moves like flowing clouds and flowing water, infusing damage fiercely into Jiaoyue's body in less than a second. Dizzy. Too fast, Jiaoyue's head is dizzy and she doesn't even have the ability to fight back. Zhou Tong took a deep breath. Big heart. An absolute heartthrob player. In the desperate situation of bloodshed, choose to use walking to avoid the opponent's skills, and flash, only use it to counter-kill. This led Zhou Tong to believe that he had completed both his moves. Hiss an unpleasant smell came from rough. Hot and hot, Su Jingyang, who was stunned, didn't grab the cigarette but with his fingers and fell directly into his broad chest vest. The sound of killing a pig echoed through the dormitory. Why don't you take a break? Zhou Tong tilted his head and watched with a suppressed smile as Su Jingyang picked up his vest and dusted the cigarette ash. To be honest, Zhou Tong really had the idea of teaming up with this little boy. He had a delicate mind and dared to fight and operate. Who wouldn't want such a player to be his teammate? Su Jingyang didn't have much to do, his shock was greater than the temperature of his cigarette butt. In fact, the only one who bravely sacrificed himself was his white vest, which was scorched out of the dazzling hole. How did you say that? Throw the 702 dormitory into the cremation furnace, only 6 bones are burned out. Wearing an injured white vest, Su Jingyang stubbornly shook his finger and said, "No. My good brother Lao Lu is still online, how can I let him fight alone?" Hard-mouthed. My head is almost knocked off by someone. In fact, Su Jingyang played quite well, but he was too particular about cooperation in the down road. Lao Lu, the female player of the Qin, didn't hit the big move at once, consumed his face and rolled the keyboard, and played with a focus on randomness. Zhou Tong suspects that he can go professional. You can go directly to IG without taking the exam. On the way down, coordination is very important. Coincidentally, AD Virus on the opposite side is the one who made a bet with Lao Lu. He is too ruthless and must use any big moves. Auxiliary robots are almost guaranteed to hit the hook. The mechanical flying claws with one hand knocked the piano girl upside down. It was not easy to get off the road, and Zhou Tong sighed, I might have guessed how AD and Lao Lu got into a conflict on the other side. Seeing the strength of the middle lane, Su Jingyang began to regain confidence and tried his best to make up for every blow as seriously as possible. Fang Yan also began to stare at the road. As the saying goes, helping the better is not helping the worse. Although it is not considered a disadvantage on the road, maintaining an equal level of equipment with the opponent. But Wang Hao has a tendency to only play the line without supporting himself. Even if Fang Yan goes up, he can't survive in the upper half of the field. In a fight between immortals in the middle, there is a winner or loser. It's okay if we don't go to the jungle, but when we go, it seems like we're adding buffs to the opposite side. Jiao Yu will kill once in a 1-2 doubles, and Kai Nan will kill once in a 1-2 doubles. He can only capture it. Zhao Xian brushes through 3 wilderness areas, and blind monks squat down the road. The show on the middle road is dazzling, and the fight on the road is evenly divided. After the blind monk killed Virus twice, Zhou Tong took a cold breath. This match began to be shrouded in mystery. Don't say it, don't really say it. Zhou Tong can't predict which side will win. The expert invited from the opposite side was dragged to the middle by Kenan, unable to swim, and the confrontation between the two sides was directly deadlocked. Until the first dragon's refresh. Su Xingyang's male gun was decisively taken away by a Kali Minghua RQEWQR, who was stuck in the field of vision, when he entered the grass, without even showing his pure male passivity. Damn it, Su Xingyang, the dragon is about to run out. Old Lu's classic roar. You call me Gubba. If it weren't for you and me having so much equipment, I would have QR seconds on my backhand. Don't call me. The two brothers even started pinching each other. As the saying goes, when the brothers were driving in the dark, they hooked up and went to the internet cafe, but when it was dawn, they took 5 cars and left, right. Seeing that Su Xingyang had delivered it, Wang Hao thought to himself that it was not right. The most rigid person is me, how could I replace you first? So R quickly jumped down from the dragon pit, W stepped on the 3 people, and directly swept through the second section of R to defeat the Virus machine. Fang Yan had no choice but to touch Ruiwen to follow, but the result was that neither of the brothers killed or the dragon caught them, and both died. Kenan is quite rational, holding a double move with an R in his hand and not daring to open a team. If the team were to be destroyed in the dragon pit, at the speed of the advancing moon of Virus, it would probably drop crystals. As expected, after defeating the dragon, a wave of advance immediately came from the opposite side in the middle. Directly demolished the second tower in order to climb higher ground. But due to Kenan's full skills, he ultimately made a rational decision to stop. The two brothers on the way down have already taken the lead, but there was a communication problem. After the resurrection of Sanaa's male gun, he went straight to Xiaolong. At this time, Xiaolong was still in a team economy, and the overall improvement in combat power was obvious. But Sanaa's vision is too poor. As soon as they entered the wilderness, they were caught dead in the dragon pit, along with the blind monk. The child in the middle is confused. In less than 5 minutes, the two brothers dropped off twice on the way, and Kenan stood in the middle holding his skills, feeling powerless to turn the tide in an instant. The economy on the opposite side, Jiaoyue, is already well developed. Now, after finishing the murder book, take a stop towards the middle road. If the gods block the killing gods and Buddha blocks the killing Buddha, anyone who goes will be instantly killed. The situation has passed. Not long ago, Su Xingyang and Lao Lu were still chattering, but now they are no longer talking, and the more they fight, the more silent they become. Sitting in front of Zhou Tong, Su Xingyang threw cigarette butts one after another, his eyebrows furrowed to the point of trapping flies. Fortunately, Wang Hao found a chance in the middle and directly killed the Veilous robot, finally slowing down the pace of advancement on the opposite side. The economic pressure is really too great. After being resurrected on the way down, the opposite side quickly organized another push, and the male gun caught by the robot's flash was instantly shot. Perhaps due to nervousness, Lao Lu flashed into the sky above the opposite side's face. Virus no longer pretends. Kick Lao Lu to death and dance directly on the high ground. Everyone, test account 8, Arrow of Punishment. Everyone, test account 7, Steam Robot. Pop pop. In the earphones, the keyboard was pounding loudly, and Lao Lu couldn't hold his tension anymore. Su Xingyang also threw away the mouse, leaned back on the chair, and lowered his head to press on his temples. Lao Lu, as a person, is too pressured when he is at a disadvantage, which makes it impossible for him to fully utilize his original strength. Su Xingyang was also very helpless. His online development was too poor, and he had never won against the opponent. If it weren't for Fang Yan's help in catching a few waves, he would have been unable to play anymore. Even the reinforcements would have looked at the face of the opponent. Among the 3 people in the dormitory, Fang Yan's face was heavy and Su Jingyang wanted to give up. Only Wang Hao happily searched for a Kali solo on the wilderness line with his eyes on him. He was not troubled at all, and his happiness was only built on a Kali's body. It doesn't matter if you can't beat the other side. Just beat a Kali. Haozi's happiness is always so simple and unadorned. Squatting outside the war fog on the opposite highland, Wang Hao took out a Kali, a single belt, 3 times in the same place. What's your problem? Shadow Fist requests to initiate interaction. Wang Hao posted a question mark with his back hand, and after returning to the city, he happily lit a cigarette and continued to squat with his real eyes, devouring all the fresh food. Zhou Tong shrugged his shoulders, feeling a bit amused. Wang Hao's thinking was too detached, while Akali's playing style was too team-oriented, and he even added a fatten outfit to make up for the lack of front-row players in the lineup. The equipment doesn't match, it's normal for Ruiwen to miss this point. So, the originally good game turned into solo with a single player and fiery spirit, with 4 people huddling together to demolish the tower, and only Kennen guarding the house. The little boy is already sweating profusely. He felt like he couldn't integrate into his teammates' mental circuits, with nearly 7 seconds of resurrection time left for the down road and field play, and his front teeth tower was about to fall. 5-4. When there was only bare crystal left, a thread of thread lit up, but then disappeared. The sound of Wang Hao killing a Kali came on, and he returned to the city in place. Fang Yan was the first to resurrect and directly kicked the opponent, Virus. 2-1. Seeing Kanan's position, Zhou Tong's eyes lit up and he held on to Su Jingyang's hand, then sat down and squeezed him out. If you can fight, let me do it. Is there a person across from Chapter 8? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push, Su Jingyang gave up directly and gave up the keyboard. Lao Lu is under a lot of pressure and feels cramped when playing, afraid that a careless person might make a question mark on his face. Su Jingyang didn't understand. This guy doesn't play well on his own, but he can always discover other people's problems, which can be described as sharp-eyed. 2 people usually have fewer double rows. Although the relationship is good when not playing games. But there was no sound in the ranking, 1 by 1. At this moment, Old Lu and Su Jingyang were resurrected together on the screen. Zhou Tong grabbed the mouse and quickly manipulated the mail gun to rush to the battlefield. The health of the crystal rapidly decreases. There are only 2/3 left. Kenan spent QW on the side and used E-skills to pull. Although it was not very useful, he successfully reduced the health of Jiaoyue by half. Fang Yan seized the opportunity and kicked Virus with 1 kick. Seeing Zhou Tong holding the mouse, Fang Yan's confidence greatly increased. Due to the 5-kill Sword Saint, he now has an overly blind trust in Zhou Tong. Can we fight? Yes. After receiving a positive answer from Zhou Tong, Fang Yan directly kicked in wearing resurrection armor. After entering the crowd, Fang Yan seized the opportunity and kicked the robot. He found the angle very well, and while the robot repelled, it also hit Zhao Xian, controlling both with 1 foot. Virus is alone. Jiaoyue moved backwards to avoid the control of the blind monk, which also exposed the position of Virus. The blind monk of Fang Yan's full output equipment. In the past, Virus lost 1/3 of his blood. Zhou Tong looks for an angle, the smoke bomb hits Virus, a general attack, 1-2. Walk while A, wait until the health is almost the same, then slide E into the ball, stick to the face, and take away Virus with a full Q. This doesn't even count. While killing Virus, Zhou Tong dodged the robot's Q and Jiaoyue's Q one after another, relying on his silky walking. However, he never dared to be too close to Zhao Xian. In the opposing lineup, Jiaoyue and Zhao Xian are the biggest threats to mail guns and need someone to clamp them down. Seeing that everyone on Zhou Tong's side has been resurrected, The other side looked at the half-broken crystal unwillingly, and after fighting and retreating, Zhao Xian had already moved towards the outside of the highland. Just the bright moon doesn't seem to want to leave yet. In his mind, the downfall of Zhou Tong's team was very difficult, and now there were only crystals left. He just needed to find an opportunity to drop off the road duo in seconds, 3 against 3, and he was not afraid at all. He could even end the battle directly. Zhou Tong dared not approach and kept a distance from Jiayue. If it weren't for Fang Yan controlling the robot and Zhao Xian with one foot just now, forcing Jiayue back, Zhou Tong wouldn't have killed Virus in seconds. At this point in time, the damage of Jiayue is too high. If she touches it, she will die. Her ability to kill alone is too strong, and QREW doesn't even need the second R. We can't let them go back, chase after them. When Zhou Tong was speaking, Ruiwen had already returned to the city and chased after the people from the opposite side, including E and Q. There was no need for him to say anything at all. Wang Hao's typical actions were enough. Fang Yan followed closely behind, touching Ruiwen and rushing forward. Jiayue hesitated for a moment. Her development was good, and killing the blind monk was not a problem, but Ruiwen's development was also not bad. Considering that she might not be able to come out after killing the blind monk. The bright moon decisively retreated. In the earphones, Lao Lu hesitated for a moment and said, "A Tong. Believe me. Zhou Tong's talent for this game is not high, and he is a bit stronger than Lao Lu, but it is also limited. Therefore, Lao Lu has specially hired experts in this game. What frightened me was that the expert seemed to be a primary school student. Surprisingly, elementary school students are really skilled. From Kennan's performance, Lao Lu has already been impressed. As mentioned at the beginning, in subsequent matches, Kennan will only be mentioned when he is shouting hard." Upon hearing Zhou Tong's voice, Old Lu hesitated for a moment, but when he thought of Kennan's performance, he gritted his teeth and fought hard. Following Zhou Tong's command, he directly increased the movement speed buff and chased after the Jiayue Zhao Xin robot. Zhou Tong silently counted the time. It takes almost 30 minutes to kill Virus and Akali before they are resurrected, and the resurrection time after death is very long. If you maintain a situation of more and less, if you are lucky, you can directly push down the opponent's base. The other party chooses to retreat from the wilderness. However, the wild area has no vision at all. If we push forward recklessly, we may be beaten back by Jiayue. Now only Ruiwen can barely resist, and the other 4 people will all die. Are you still chasing after Brother Tong? Fang Yan Q explored the grass, but hesitated for a moment. Just now, Zhou Tong had hoped for a comeback in this game when he saw Keenan's position, but Jiayue was very cunning and had very good control of the distance, so he didn't give Keenan a chance to enter. Rush, don't stop. Thinking of Kennan's amazing reaction and operation, Zhou Tong and he were close together. Can I be hooked? Can I be hooked? Kennan. Silence. But soon, the little boy understood Zhou Tong's meaning. Sure. A few people went straight into the wilderness in the dark. When Zhou Tong made the decision, Wang Hao had already rushed in and relied on EQ's flexible displacement ability to maintain the view of the 3 people across from him. Chasing all the way to the grass on the middle road, the map fell into darkness. Chase or not? Zhou Tong was already prepared. He directly smeared the war mist towards the edge of the grass and moved, with the string in his mind tense to the fullest, ready for full reflexes. Kennan, tightly attached to the mail gun. Just as the two were about to approach the grass, a brass-colored paw extended from the grass and aimed directly at Zhou Tong. Right now. The little boy's mind was also tense, and as soon as his paw appeared from the grass, it flashed directly, blocking the mail gun and launching a big move. 3 people, all charged. In an instant, thunder rolled in, and Kennan's ultimate move directly filled 3 people, taking full damage within the duration of the move. The robot on the opposite side was stunned. Hurriedly explaining to his teammates in YY's microphone, he clearly hooked a male gun and how it turned into an electric mouse. In fact, when he noticed the hook returning with the lightning ball, he already realized that something was wrong. 3 people standing together, dizzy and in an excellent position. Zhou Tong smiled slightly and directly moved forward with his E-skill, flashing a close fit and sending a QR code. But unfortunately, Zhao Yue did not die. She is too financially advanced and has gained enough experience in solo driving. She has already reached the level of the 6 gods costume, and surprisingly, a set of skills from Kenan Jia Men's spear did not die. Of course, there is also a reason why she stands relatively backward. The Q of the male gun was completely blocked by Zhao Xian at the front. After controlling Zhao Yue, directly QR receive a set of skills to instantly kill Kenan. The little boy did his best. When he flashed the hook, he had already anticipated this result. It was him who was in line with Zhao Yue. How could he not have imagined the terrifying aspect of the middle single on the other side? After killing Kenan, taking advantage of the enemy's field of view, he directly shifted the blue buff on the opposite side and disappeared into the fog of war. After the incident, brush off your clothes and leave. Your achievements and reputation are on your body. Playing so cool. I can't accept it. Wang Hao got angry and Q jumped over the wall into the darkness. I can't tolerate people who are even more handsome than me. Come on, break your head. Damn it. Wang Hao came to play entirely as an entertainment bureau. Excited, no one can hold back. After Ruiwen climbed over the wall and grass, the bright moon did not leave, like a hunter lurking in the darkness, still waiting there. At this point, the equipment CD for Zhao Yue was ready. As soon as Ruiwen climbed over the wall, a black ball of light rushed over, and her body was already adorned with a buff of underworld fire embrace. Damage increase. The Zhao Yue, whose DPS had already exploded, became even more terrifying after triggering the buff of the underworld fire. Pure output equipment, level 17 Ruiwen has not yet reacted, and her health bar is already empty. Nima. What kind of ghost damage? Wang Hao jumped up from his chair excitedly, smashing the keyboard with a clattering sound. Fortunately, the game was coming to an end, otherwise Wang Hao would have to keep an eye on Zhao Yue all the way later. Perhaps his gaze on the bright moon is even worse. It's better to restrain a collie and keep fewer people in the opposing team battle. Zhou Tong took a sniff, he was ready to retreat, but Wang Hao's charge directly fueled his emotions. The bright moon on the opposite side returned to the city in front of Wang Hao and Lao Lu. Before returning to the city, Zhao Yue pressed Ctrl+4, and mocking laughter rang out in front of the two of them. TSK. Smash your face. You should know that Zhou Tong from the previous life was the top scorer in both civil and military affairs in Ionia. His temper cannot be said to be irritable, but it is not considered good either. Can you bear this? The smoke bomb fired directly and interrupted the return to the city. Lao Lu is also a hot-tempered person who manipulates Sana QA, but it seems that Xiao Yu's blood bar has not moved. I've been playing for QA seconds. It doesn't seem realistic. Wait a moment. Zhou Tong threw W just to interrupt Xiao Yue's return to the city, but Lao Lu clearly misunderstood his intention and rushed forward directly. The golden sound waves rushed straight towards the bright moon, holding it in place. However, there is no use for eggs. Your Qin blood is crispy and thin, and Zhao Yue is useless even in her ultimate moves. After breaking free from control, a QW-A, and Lao Lu's screen turns black and white. Zhou Tong took advantage of the empty gear of the Zhao Yue QCD to level a scattered bullets and retreat. Unexpectedly, this action directly angered Zhao Yue. I am a solo assassin, fully equipped with divine equipment, and even an ADC without protection dares to ride my face and harass me. I can't bear it. Although Q did not refresh, on the bright moon, R directly locked the mail gun and pressed it flat against the face. By the way, the CD time for the old version of Zhou Yue's ultimate move is not very long. Choosing a non-refresh gameplay, with the addition of cooldown equipment, it takes only 8 to 9 seconds. In Zhou Yu's view, the mail gun has been captured, and the head money is almost in her pocket. In a dark room, only the cold and bright computer screen was shining, and a young boy bared his teeth and smiled. What a dish. If I could receive this kind of job every day, what competition would I play? He stared closely at the retreating mail gun and had already announced his death date. He only waited for the second R to cool down and get close to him before he could directly kill him. Q is not as good as CD, just use R for close fitting. This kind of behavior can be considered a form of humiliation. It's not fatal to shoot W and chase the mail gun and level it twice. Zhou Yue is trying to distance herself from the mail gun to ensure that he can't run away. Even during the chase, he had time to chase and point back to the city, completely teasing the mail gun. Zhou Yue's cold but mocking laughter was right behind her. Zhou Tong ignored it and plunged into the grass. Entering the grass. What's the use of it? On the other side, the boy in front of the computer grinned coldly, manipulating Zhou Yue to closely follow. There was no view on either side of the grass in the middle, and his eyes were also black. But it doesn't matter, the health of the mail gun can be taken away with just one set of skills. There is no more operating space left. He believed that even if he rolled his face on the keyboard next, he could still steadily take down this mail gun. In the view of Zhou Yue, the mail gun who entered the grass from zhaoshuyuan.com suddenly hit himself. He quickly pressed the keyboard, Q, and the moonlight hung on the top of the mail gun's head. Who knew the other party would directly retaliate with a large lead bullet full of Q? Having just experienced a team battle, Zhou Yue's health was already not good, and this set has become even more useless. But it's okay, there's still R. But just as he was manipulating Zhou Yue to lock with R, the mail gun quickly drew his gun and used the thin wall in the middle to slide upwards. Across the wall, the mail gun's field of view was once again lost. Zhou Yue changed direction, clicked with the mouse, and he was convinced that as long as he could see the mail gun's field of view and directly R onto the opponent's face, the mail gun would undoubtedly die. But it's around the wall of the middle road. The drawback of the bright moon not shifting has been exposed. The mail gun card's field of view is very delicate and does not give Zhou Yue R a chance. Every time the model is displayed, before Zhou Yue locks it, he will immediately lose his field of view. And that mail gun was cheap, every time he showed his vision, it was a shot, and Zhou Yue watched as her already limited health decreased again. Until the mail gun's small skill is refreshed. At this time, Zhou Yue is still searching for the location of the mail gun. Suddenly, a person from the opposite side quickly drew a gun and rushed out of the shadow, pressing it onto their own face. AQ succeeded in one go, and the originally low-health Zhou Yu was instantly killed. Quiet. The dormitory is quiet in the earphones, there came the sound of Lao Lu swallowing saliva. In the dark room, the boy left the keyboard with both hands and the smile on his face disappeared. He was stunned and said, Card. Card view. Can the field of vision still be so limited? The script cannot be so precise, can it? Is that a person across from you? Chapter 9. High school that year. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Zhou Tong's actions stunned the roommates, and there was a long silence in his earphones. The child brother's voice came in, bully. Wang Hao rubbed his hair like a chicken coop, feeling a bit dissatisfied and said, You're so handsome to play with. Su Zhengyang, who scored the highest in the dormitory, remained silent for a while. Do you usually play us? It took a while for such a cold sentence to emerge. With 3 heads taken, the economy of the male gun took off and, under the command of Zhou Tong, unexpectedly won this match. Before the celebration in the dormitory could be heard, the door was pushed open with a bang, and old Lu rushed in excitedly to embrace Zhou Tong. Thank you, brother. My chastity has been preserved and I don't need to run naked anymore. Su Jingyang pursed his lips and said, you'd better go run naked. The big move you put in determines which qualification you have. Get lost. You still have 1,800 points. I can't even take it with me. Don't you take a look at what people are looking for on the other side. Apart from AD, everyone on the other side is playing well. How do you want me to develop? When the 2 brothers met, they pinched each other. Zhou Tong shrugged and left Su Jingyang's computer, sitting in his seat to log into his account. After a game, he wasn't tired anymore, so he decided to play for a while before going to bed. However, my score is indeed a bit low, Zhou Tong thought to himself. But it's not a big deal. The ranking mechanism will be revised soon, and by the end of the season, there will be a rank system. It won't make much difference to play again, as the season is coming to an end. There was a lot of noise in the dormitory because of the game just now, and they started making a scene. Fang Yan accused Wang Hao of not supporting him, and Wang Hao accused Fang Yan of being too incompetent. Old Lu felt that Su Jingyang couldn't help him, and Su Jingyang retorted, thinking that old Lu's assistance was like a joke. Lin Haiyao crossed his legs and happily watched jokes on the side. Upon logging into the client, Zhou Tong realized that there was still a friend application that had not been processed. Sweet TC. This ID looks like a girl. However, the more like an ID is to a girl, the more likely she is to be a stingy guy. These are all cruel lessons from countless failed online relationships, and they are all bloody experiences. I only discovered it by clicking on the record. This sweet TC is actually the ADC Caitlyn with the Rebirth teleportation in the morning. I don't know if she added friends to play together or if she wants to have a heated language exchange. If a game is played with research as an auxiliary option, it can be uncomfortable for AD if they don't cooperate. Zhou Tong also plays AD himself, so he has a deep understanding. I won that one in the morning, so there shouldn't be any problem. After some thought, Zhou Tong still passed. Sweet TC, not online, the avatar is gray. By observing the record, it is not difficult to see that this player is a fanatic AD enthusiast, and almost all of his records are heroes like Virus, Caitlyn, and Graves. Oh, I've played a few rounds of Draven and the data is pretty good. This is definitely a picky guy. Zhou Tong firmly concluded directly. After all, the girl from a good family playing Draven and achieving such a good record sounds very surreal. At night, the temperature of the heating gradually decreased, the keyboard felt increasingly cold to the touch, the computer screen in the dormitory gradually closed, and Zhou Tong also climbed onto the bed. Looking back on today, he only felt a dream and pinched himself before confirming that he was in reality. Tomorrow we need to check when the S3 season will be updated, be prepared, and make a good effort to score. After all, scores are always the foundation of persuasiveness. Whether it's building a team or joining a team, only Ionia and Hanbok have a sufficiently high ranking to gain the corresponding say. Not right. At this point, LCK has not yet won so many championships, so the value of the Korean server should not be much higher at this time. Not as good as Ionia's ranking. Reborn for a lifetime, the thinking of middle-aged people made Zhou Tong's mind less urgent and a bit more stable. He understood that many things cannot be accomplished overnight and must be done slowly, otherwise it will have a counterproductive effect. The foundation is to be down to earth and solidify every step. In various chaotic memories, Zhou Tong fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, the heavy snow continued to fall. It has been raining continuously for 2 days, and Lin Haiyao, who went out to buy breakfast, complained that stepping down one step would bury the snow to the knees. Everyone in the dormitory is here, except for Li Dong and dormitory head Su Jingyang. Li Dong should have gone to the library to review, but I don't know where Su Jingyang went. Zhou Tong is still thinking about asking him to bring some breakfast back. So I opened my phone and searched for the phone number in my contacts. In 12 years, it is not yet the era of WeChat for all. Taobao has just begun, and the PaiPai website that benchmarks Taobao has not yet fallen. It doesn't seem like a long time ago, but in reality, the differences in life are vastly different. The development of the times was too fast, and in an instant, Zhou Tong had a somewhat retro feeling in this era, which was simply outrageous. Make a phone call. Yang, where are you? What about the esports club? Esports society. Zhou Tong felt a bit dazed, with some unpleasant memories emerging from his mind. I remember in my previous life, I also had a lot of contact with this esports club. Because at that time, Su Tingting loved to run to this esports club. At first, Zhou Tong thought that Su Tingting liked esports and League of Legends, and even deliberately went to practice on the upper division. Countless sleepless nights, just to raise the rank and meet the recruitment threshold of the esports club. By entering the esports club, one can frequently interact with Su Tingting. Really? The licking dog licked until it had nothing left. It wasn't until graduation that Zhou Tong realized that Su Tingting was not interested in games, and clearly had already been with the president of the esports club. Poor Zhou Tong, this little Tom, is foolishly kept in the dark. He wakes up early every morning, has a good breakfast, and is so attentive that even his roommates can't bear to watch him. However, in this lifetime, Zhou Tong no longer had this interest. What's the use of dating? Running your own esports business is the right thing, woman, just floating clouds. Winning the final trophy of the global finals is the ultimate dream of every esports enthusiast. Now that the esports club has just been established, it is completely unexpected that Su Jingyang, who scored 1800, will be invited. This score is not low, and he is already considered a master within the entire school. At this point in time, the S2 finals have just come to an end, and the esports industry has begun to rise in China. The hot scene of internet cafe screens unifying is about to arrive in the Summoner's Canyon. People with a keen sense of smell are already prepared to get a share of the pie in this upcoming era. Tong. What's up? The signal was a bit bad, and it took the two of them half a day to communicate smoothly. When you come back, bring 2 buns. Zhou Tong yawned, so sleepy that he almost stuck to the bed. The seal on the quilt is too terrifying. It is difficult to break free without great perseverance. Soybean milk, don't forget soybean milk, forget it, porridge is better. What a special thing, you even picked it up. Su Jingyang hung up the phone cursing and cursing. At this moment, Zhou Tong saw several QQ messages on his phone and opened them to find that they were sent by Su Tingting and Chu Yuan. Su Tingting. Tong, is there any misunderstanding between us? I feel like something was wrong with you yesterday. Su Tingting. Is there anything we can clarify? It's been a friend for so many years. What's wrong? What's wrong? Zhou Tong smacking his lips. Su Tingting is a person who is accustomed to being praised by others. Yesterday, her attitude was very normal towards her friends. What is the difference from usual? That's because Zhou Tong didn't rush to apologize and then had a warm and comforting conversation. Although Su Tingting did not attend the appointment, Zhou Tong had to apologize well and then hold up her phone in the middle of the night to comfort on QQ, which was considered normal. And Chu Yuan. In the heart of Chu Yuan, a close friend who studied abroad, Su Tingting probably wouldn't make any mistakes. With the blessing of beautiful memories from her youthful years, Su Tingting will always be the gentle and kind sister, unable to bear any injustice. Well, it's just one night, and I'll be coming to ask for punishment soon. Chu Yuan. Did you bully Tingting? Chu Yuan. Last night, Tingting called me in the middle of the night and said that you had a cold attitude towards her yesterday. She also told me that she didn't know what she had done wrong and hurt you. Chu Yuan. An old man, can you stop being so stingy? If Tingting does something wrong, I'll apologize for her and go comfort her. Mad is intellectually disabled. He had no idea how miserable his previous life was, and now he is still being a good person here. Originally, Zhou Tong didn't want to recall anything about Chu Yuan, but the news from the other party came to his face, and some dusty memories involuntarily surged into his heart. In fact, in high school, Zhou Tong and Chu Yuan had many fights over who to be with Su Tingting. Finally, inexplicably, the three of them played together and became close friends, going to school together every day and finishing school together. The three of them are all-day students and do not live on campus, and their residential area is not far away. It can be said that in high school, the relationship between the three of them was particularly strong, which even Zhou Tong, who was reborn once, had to admit. If nothing happened later, even if it was a rebirth, Zhou Tong would not have that kind of feeling towards Su Tingting and would still treat her as her best friend. However, in some things, she went too far. Chu Yuan's family is particularly wealthy. Zhou Tong knew this during his high school years. But as a wealthy second-generation, Chu Yuan did not have that domineering temperament, but instead appeared particularly low-key. In terms of interpersonal relationships, apart from being related to Su Tingting, they are all very easy-going, giving people a feeling of elegance and generosity. Later, when Chu Yuan returned to his home country and learned that Su Tingting was married, he specifically gathered the three of them together to drink a little wine and reminisce about the past. It was at that time that Su Tingting introduced Chu Yuan to her second-generation wealthy husband from the esports club whom she had married after coming out of school. Encouraged by Su Tingting's husband, Chu Yuan, who returned to China to start his own business, invested all his capital in the emerging esports industry and formed a small team on Shuyuan www.zhaoshuyuan.com. At first, I did make some money. But with the later formation of LPL, the survival space of many small teams was squeezed, and the launch of the secondary league LSPL caused a significant blow to some unknown teams at that time. If you can't make it to the second-tier league, you may never make it to the next level in your life. At that time, under Chu Yuan's command, there were still a few strong players who were about to enter the LSPL and have a bright future. But Su Tingting, the wealthy second-generation husband, actually secretly started trading and directly encouraged the team members to participate in fake matches. On the eve of the championship final of the city championship, this incident was exposed, and the person who exposed it was actually Su Tingting. She pointed her spear directly at Chu Yuan, pushed all the pots onto him, and took out her husband from inside. For a moment, pressure from public opinion poured in. Sponsors who cooperated with the team withdrew their funds and filed a lawsuit against Chu Yuan, demanding compensation for breach of contract in a series of losses. None of the team members explained to their own boss and defected. With the introduction of Su Tingting's husband, they joined the well-known LSPL team at that time. At that time, Zhou Tong was just a little platinum, and his work was not related to LOL, so he had less contact with the two of them. Later, when I saw Chu Yuan again, his beard was shaky and his whole body changed. He held a glass of xiaojiu and talked to Zhou Tong a lot, tears streaming down his face. His fingers trembled so hard that he couldn't even hold the mouse. Later on, he learned about Chu Yuan's news from the headlines of the news. The owner of the wealthy second-generation team, who used to operate fake matches, jumped down from the rooftop of XX supermarket in this city. Chapter 10. Season 3 Pre-Competition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ads by Google equals window. Ads by Google. Push. Chu Yuan from the previous life treated Zhou Tong very well. At that time, Zhou Tong did not have the ability to see his own attribute panel, so he had no plans to develop in the esports industry at first. Although separated by mountains, Chu Yuan still helped Zhou Tong a lot with his work by utilizing his resources. Before his heart was determined to die, Chu Yuan came to see Zhou Tong for the last time. He poured his inner bitterness onto Zhou Tong, including the bits and pieces of the formation of the team. Zhou Tong was like a qualified audience, mixing liquor and quietly listening to him confide. In this life, he will no longer watch Chu Yuan die, nor can he forgive Su Tingting and his husband from the esports club. Although these things haven't happened yet, Su Tingting and Chu Yuan may not even have plans for the future. But in the previous life, this actually happened. Zhou Tong did not respond to Su Tingting's news. After hesitating for a long time, he just sent a message to Chu Yuan. Let's talk about it when we come back. Speaking of which, Zhou Tong really wants to see him again. The past life has passed too long, causing the appearance of this brother to become increasingly blurred in his heart. He is very afraid that he will completely forget the appearance of this brother at some point. After getting dressed and getting up, Su Jingyang happened to come back and walked in with a hot breakfast. The two steaming big buns suddenly felt warm all over their stomachs. The heating in the morning was not very hot, perhaps due to the upcoming holiday. There are not enough manpower on the boiler burning area. It's early December now. According to official news, the pre-season patch for S3 will be launched on the 4th. Su Jingyang still remembers Zhou Tong's mail gun last night. That delicate operation impressed Su Jingyang, who often played AD. I think your level is more than 1,200 points, maybe you played in the wrong position. The esports club is currently recruiting new players. I heard that there is a collaboration with a team from the city championship. The esports industry has a promising future. If you score higher, maybe you can join the esports club. Su Jingyang has a dream. When the time comes, we'll be together, and if we're lucky, we can play the city championship. But Zhou Tong has no plans for this and is preparing to score again after the new season comes out. After the rank system is established, based on one's own strength, looking back at the equipment and hero strength of S3, one can fully enter the top 3 rankings of Ionia. It is not difficult to enter the LPL team with the top 3 levels of Ionia. As long as the score is high enough, someone will naturally come to contact him. The two most famous teams nowadays are undoubtedly WE and IG, both of which are well-known domestic esports clubs with early success. A club that started with War 3 has a far superior position in China compared to other clubs. A wealthy and financially strong individual who once spent a lot of money building a team in the Dota circle. Although the latter's qualifications are not as good as WE's, its popularity has faintly surpassed WE's, and the two fans have a strong foundation, with a posture of evenly dividing the world in the esports circle. Although IG was once suppressed by WE after advancing to LOL, this situation briefly improved after the establishment of the Korean OGN League. At that time, the Korean League of Legends was just starting, and in order to improve its league level, many foreign teams were invited to play games. In the domestic glory of WE, in OGN, it is exceptionally frustrated, losing more than winning, and ultimately ending in a dismal outcome. But IG, on the other hand, swept away the decline in OGN's journey, boasted and won 5 consecutive arena matches. This wave has given Chinese players a fierce face and attracted many fans. Zhou Tong pondered over his memories. And this is the initial appearance of the two major powerhouses, as well as the pattern of domestic leagues before the establishment of LPL. Even the S2 World Championship invites these two giants to participate. However, the S2 journey was not enjoyable, as WE's internet outage and IG's challenge with Inventor M5 caused both teams to suffer consecutive setbacks, leading to the hasty end of the first NBA Finals. Fortunately, after the S game ended. In the IPL 5, the WE team faced a strong opponent in the S game and successfully broke through themselves, winning the IPL 5 championship in one fell swoop. At the same time, this is also the first world champion in the history of domestic LOL. As a result, The LOL fan base of We also began to grow wildly, with 6 billion initially taking shape, and eventually, IG was overwhelmed with pressure. It is now December 1st, 2012. I think we need to work hard to adapt to the new ranking mechanism and quickly establish a ranking in Ionia. Zhou Tong believed that Su Jingyang's strength was good and earnestly advised him. Then he counted with his fingers. The preseason of S3 will begin on December 4th. LPL will be officially established at the end of January next year. If the score can be raised to the top 20 of Ionia, there will be a well-known team like IG to connect with. I also think that the prospects for LOL are very good now, and we must seize them. Su Jingyang widened his eyes and dug out his ears, thinking he had heard the wrong thing. My goal is still in the city championship, but Zhou Tong, who is 400 points lower than me, has already started imagining teams like IG. This is too inflated, isn't it? Actually, it's not necessarily IG. Zhou Tong has not yet considered it well, and the choice is not in his hands. It mainly depends on the specific contact with his own team after the ranking is improved. The LPL quota will not be available until next year. Zhou Tong is just using IG as an example. If we use teams other than we and IG as examples, Su Jingyang may not necessarily know. The current LOL team, although somewhat famous, is not yet at the level of a few years later. Players are familiar with only two major powerhouses. Even the royal family that will take off in the future is now only well-known on a small scale. Su Jingyang touched Zhou Tong's forehead with his hand and confirmed that he did not have a fever. Although you did have a great time last night, we are still different from those big shots. Altong, we still need to be more practical. However, sleeping on the upper bunk of Fang Yan doesn't think so. Yesterday, two stunning maneuvers in a row brought a considerable shock to Fang Yan. In his mind, Zhou Tong is now very eerie, with a feeling of overnight enlightenment, and he has inexplicable confidence in him. Even last night, when Zhou Tong stayed up all night, he kept beating him several times. When I woke up from sleep, my whole body changed. Not just operations. The temperament has become more stable, and the whole person looks very capable, without the typical heartache of licking dogs before. There is a sense of reliability in silence. Upon hearing the conversation between the two about Fang Yan, I lifted my head in a daze. Don't listen to Brother Yang's blind coercion. My ranking next year depends on you, Brother Tong. If you don't come, I won't touch the ranking. As the most submissive person in the dormitory, Fang Yan has silently chosen his thigh. Zhou Tong smiled and made an okay gesture. Su Jingyang also gave Fang Yan a gesture, but with his middle finger, he said, "Let's rest a little longer, you're still in your dream. Thank you for your care." Fang Yan lifted the blanket and waved his hand, then buried his head tightly. In winter, the sealing of a blanket can be considered the world's top magic for a normal person. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye, and soon it was time for the season update. The S3 season officially begins. Opening the game and looking at the updated familiar rank, Zhou Tong's memory in his muscles quickly returned, and the rank at this time was the most primitive appearance: brass, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, king. In the following days, Zhou Tong spent most of his time playing games. The configuration of the dormitory computer is not good, so he went to the Blue Lotus Internet Cafe. This internet cafe is close to the school and you can order takeout. Although express delivery is not popular, the owners of surrounding restaurants will personally deliver it. The business of the internet cafe is very good, especially with the new cashier coming these days. According to Fang Yan, this new cashier is from the same school as them and is one of the school flowers. And that school flower has fair skin, beautiful appearance, and long legs. Fang Yan claims that even if he doesn't play games, going once a day is not a disadvantage. Zhou Tong's energy is focused on the game and pays little attention to it. He always gives money to Fang Yan when he starts up. Since the new cashier, Fang Yan has been too willing to do such a thing. Every time before Zhou Tong could speak, he would consciously procrastinate on everything at the cashier, just to stay a few more minutes. Not to mention, the customer flow of Blue Lotus has significantly exceeded the past few days. What a beautiful beauty is she! Zhou Tong didn't understand. Zhou Tong, who has lived 2 lives and is in his 50s, cannot be said to regard beauty like dirt like a monk. But it can also effectively restrain some unrealistic desires and focus solely on conquering what one wants. Seeing Fang Yan happily all day, Zhou Tong didn't understand. Let me tell you this, Brother Tong. If a beautiful woman can convert units, this cashier girl can be worth 8 su ting. Fang Yan's magical imagination contrasted, and only then did he realize that his speech was somewhat inappropriate. Quickly shut up. When we used to chat occasionally, if we accidentally made fun of Su Tingting, Zhou Tong would definitely get angry. Even if he knew it was a joke, he wouldn't allow anyone to talk to Su Tingting. However, today's Zhou Tong was unexpectedly calm. Everyone has their own beauty and ugliness in their eyes, and each person's definition is different. This kind of joke is really not suitable for making. Zhou Tong tapped the keyboard and casually said. But what you're saying is also true. Some people just have flaws in their conscience and cannot compare to normal people. There was a hint of resentment in Zhou Tong's words. Fang Yan approached cautiously and said, "Did you argue? Did you fall out?" Smiling and shaking his head, Zhou Tong started the game. Not yet. Something that hasn't happened in this life doesn't make him too excited. But Chu Yuan. Zhou Tong will definitely not let the same thing happen again. This time, he is waiting for Chu Yuan to come back. Since the cashier girl is so beautiful and attractive, why don't you go help me buy a pack of cigarettes? Taking out 10 yuan, Zhou Tong happily charged towards Fang Yan and raised his chin. Fang Yan happily took the money, grabbed the back of the sofa chair, and walked towards the bar while still trying to reconcile with Zhou Tong. There are all kinds of things in my mouth that look like fairies, beauties, school flowers, and so on. Zhou Tong smiled helplessly and then shook his head. What kind of school flower selection does the school and the novel always like to do, such as creating school flower rankings and rankings? In reality, it is rarely seen. However, in the era of gradually developing the internet, there is indeed a high level of attention given to girls who are particularly attractive both domestically and internationally in schools. With the passing of generations, the name of the school flower has also emerged. But Zhou Tong is not interested in these things. Rebirth has only 3 purposes. To ascend to the top, to make money, and to save Chu Yuan. Childhood love grows, and the 2 lifetimes add up to about 50 years old. Those green and astringent feelings are fading away in memory, leaving only emotions similar to nostalgia. During these days, Zhou Tong almost lived in an internet cafe. He skipped all the classes he could skip, and went back to wash his face for the classes he couldn't skip. He yawned and sat there listening, then quickly returned to the internet cafe. Blue Lotus is now Zhou Tong's second home. This led Su Zhengyang, the dormitory head, to believe that he had gone crazy for a while. As of mid-January, Zhou Tong has reached the top 30 of the Ionia national server. The reason why Zhou Tong did not reach the top was not because of his weak strength, but because he was mostly in double row, and it was not easy to showcase his unique style with his 2 unique tricks. When Fang Yan is around, he follows Fang Yan, and when Fang Yan is not around, he follows Sweet TC. The friends on my previous account, unless I knew someone in real life, couldn't remember anything else, so I deleted them completely. Fang Yan and Sweet TC are actually not far behind in terms of strength, and after the rank reform, they will probably have the strength of a diamond goalkeeper. At this point, there is no master segmentation yet. Finding diamonds at the book garden www.zhaoshuyuan.com is already impressive and belongs to the top level among players. At first, the score was relatively smooth. But as the rank increased, a king began to appear on the opposite side. The wild areas of Fangyan are always caught and exploded. At this time, each of the Ionian kings was very famous. If there are only 50 kings in a region and they rank 50th and lose points, they will dive directly to Diamond 1. Only the top 50 players in the region can receive the honor of the king. As long as you encounter a king, it is definitely not easy, either in terms of unique gameplay, or in extremely flashy operations. And Sweet TC and Fang Yan were stuck in the position of Diamond 1, which was still pulled up by Zhou Tong. Every time I hit it, it doesn't take long for it to fall off. Later, Fang Yan gave up and started to row on his own. It's really painful to be with Zhou Tong, and the players we encounter are not human. But Sweet TC enjoys the pleasure of having a double row with Zhou Tong, believing that they can learn new things every time. Unlike Fang Yan, Sweet TC is playing AD. Therefore, as long as Zhou Tong plays as an assistant, Sweet TC will not be so uncomfortable, and the performance of the assistant in the offline duo is still crucial. But the assistance of S3 doesn't move to the back of C, so I pitifully bought some real eyes and inserted them everywhere. The later output ability of Sweet T is extremely worrying. The two of them would lose points every time they walked down the road, and Zhou Tong had to play in other positions from time to time to increase their points. And Sweet TC has a bad habit. Every time I was halfway through the line, I would stand still and the screen would turn black before running back and typing pitifully, "I'm sorry, something happened just now."